Then how come it wasn't included in the county executive's budget that he transmitted to us on September the 15th?
Pardon me?
How come it was not included in the county executive's budget that he transmitted to the legislature on September the 15th? See what I'm getting at? I'm not disbelieving your testimony, but I'm concerned about the fact that this is not coming from the police department up. I'm concerned about the fact that you're being told by the county executive, cut this. Beginning of this week. Now, that's fine. He's the county executive. If that's what he wants and that's what he told you to do, that's fine, but tell us.
Let me respond to your question, Peter. This item comes from me, not from the county clerk. This was part of my submission. This item was on the table during the Legislature administration as well. This is not a new item. This has not come forth from the county executive office. It certainly was evaluated by the Office of Management and Budgets, but it initiates. It initiated for me.
Is it because we're a force of women?
Commissioner, I appreciate the situation. I appreciate the budget in Nassau County and the economic downturn in general. But here's the first problem I have. If the initiative was around in August, and it's been, bandied around and came out this week, I'm hearing about it basically today for the first time. Maybe last night I heard about it at 8:30 this morning. And the problem I have with that happening is we have no turnaround time. Let me ask you this, what is the percentage of cuts in hours that are going to take place regarding this group of people versus percentages across the board? It would seem to me that this is a higher percentage, and it's almost discriminatory against crossing guards.
Well, I think in the budget, and perhaps someone else can testify, I think there is in part-time positions, is there a 10% cut? Yes, sir. I think there's a 10% cut in part-time positions. The question was in other areas. I'm not referring to the crossing guards with the 10%. I think in the budget, you'll see for part-time positions a 10% cut.
Across the board?
Across the board.
In all of Nassau County?
That's I remember seeing that.
And what is the percentage relative to the crossing guards?
It's $1 million out of a payroll that is $22 million. So it's be about an 8%.
8%. Now, in terms of the summer, I wasn't sure I understood, and this is what's bothering me. I'm sitting up here right now about to vote on a budget, and I don't understand the details of the cut. Now, in terms of what I understood you to say was, no crossing guard position will be cut, and all crossing guard positions will remain. Is that correct?
Correct. All crossings will be covered.
Not the clerical end.
The availability, though, of work outside of the purview of crossings and church crossings, and that will be withdrawn.
We're not going to
So
be working.
what does that mean?
That means when school is not in session and we have no crossing work for guards or limited crossing work for guards, we, as a result of this fiscal crisis, cannot offer clerical work for crossing guards during those periods of time. So during the summer, we won't have available for them clerical work.
What about school crossings for summer school programs?
That always stay intact. There's no change in any of that. Any of the work of a crossing guard that will not change.
What percentage of crossing guards worked clerical work when they were out of their crossing guard duties?
All of them.
The answer's all, is that true or false?
There are some guards that, a few, that do
So-
take the summers off.
And what would the number be of crossing guards that actually did clerical work then? What's the actual number? Is it 100? Is it 400? Is it 300? Do we know that number?
Well, out of the 430 guards, it would probably be more than 300 that work.
Okay, so of the 300 that worked, they would do it each and every day that they were working? They would do their crossing guard duties?
No, there is no crossing work. This was work that we provided.
No, I understand that. What I'm asking is, how often was that provided to them? Daily?
How often?
How often was
20
it?
hours, 20
Right.
hours per week.
And if I multiply that times 300, that's 600 hours a week of man or woman hours, correct?
Correct.
Of clerical work. So either one or two things come to mind to me. Either those jobs were never needed, or they are needed, and now they're not going to be supplied. If the county of Nassau is paying for clerical work to the tune of 600 hours, one of two things are going to happen. Either that work will no longer ever be done, or the people left behind are going to get overtime. Just correcting, I apologize, it's not 600, it's 6,000 hours a week. So what happens to the 6,000 hours of clerical time that no one is doing now? Does that mean that the people that are left in the department, I'm going to let you answer it, do they do the work, or the work no longer gets done?
Doesn't get done.
We have to prioritize the work.
I'm not asking about prioritizing, I'm saying,
I just, for me to answer, I
go ahead,
get
answer.
distracted.
I'm sorry, don't be
We
distracted.
need to prioritize the work, and much like we're asking all of our CSEA members, all of our police officer members, all of our detective members, all of our supervisors, and all of our exempt members, to do more with less, we're going to have to manage that work.
But I would think that's practically impossible to make up 6,000 man hours or woman hours. I don't know how could we possibly expect the individuals that are left in the particular departments and say to them, okay, we've just eliminated 6,000 hours, you have to make it up. When, by the way, you're probably going to get a salary cut, and you're probably going to work longer hours as it is to do the job you're doing, because people are going to exodus from the county.
Right. This is not an easy task.
And I'm not saying it is. And what I'm saying, it's not an easy task, but it sounds like one of two things are going to happen, and it seems to me that people are going to benefit by their now working, because they're going to have to work overtime to pick it up.
The overtime budget in this fiscal year is reduced by more than $5 million. There is no overtime available for additional clerical work, and we're going to manage it with that. You have to understand some of the nature of this clerical work. Some of it was important for the department, and that's when I say prioritize, we're going to have to get on.
And I understand
Some
that.
of it was nice to have kind of clerical work. In other words, taking look, I mean,
Well, what percentage would you take to that last phrase?
I'll give you an example. We would have some assist in pulling case files and organizing paperwork within that case file.
Okay.
Things that would be out of date sequence, things that would making a copy of a case, maybe that's not printed and put in there. That kind of thing, because when you put so many guards to work, when crossings are not available, some of the work that we assigned is not critical to the mission of the department.
But ultimately has to get done.
Thank you.
Or
It can
they,
get done by having the officer assigned to that case be neater in the first place. There's a whole host of things we have to do to suck it up and get through this.
And give him time and a half, the officer.
I can't reconcile in my own mind 6,000 hours. If I discount 1,000 of them, for whatever reason, that's still 5,000 hours. Now I'm left with my staff. If my staff is doing what they're supposed to be doing in the first instance, which I believe the police department is the best in the country. So I believe if the staff is doing what they should have been doing in the first instance, and they're working their 12-hour shift, then that means they now have to work 14 or 16 hours, or 20 hours. I don't see how it could ever be made up. And in any business, you can discount something. So if I factor out 1,000, I still have a 5,000 a week times 52 weeks. I just don't see how it's practically impossible to do that at this point.
Look, as I say, this isn't easy, but when I say prioritize, we have to prioritize in the context that we're in an economic crisis.
And I understand that totally.
And that's why we are here with this item. During an economic crisis, I believe that I can suck it up and take care of those clerical duties with incumbent staff.
All right, and with all due respect, and I've known you for many years, and I know you're very competent, and I think you deserve to be the commissioner, you're not the one sucking it up. Everybody in the audience. Excuse me, the fact that it's coming in the 11th hour, and we really, we try to analyze everything on both sides of the aisles, and I'll give everybody up here credit for that, okay? But when I'm sitting here ignorant to an issue, not because I didn't choose to understand it, but because I really didn't have a chance to analyze it, I don't know how I could vote on that issue, that particular issue. Again, I will say, I respect you. I know you're doing a great job. When they said your name as commissioner, I thought it was great. I just think in this particular instance, it seems to have come, again, in the 11th hour, without any warning to anyone on our side of the aisle. It seems to have come where we turn to our financial people. This morning in caucus, I was trying to get answers. They kept putting their hands up because they didn't have them. So how can we sit here today and go over a multi-billion-dollar budget which impacts on many different groups? You mentioned the detectives before, and we'll get into that later. But the bottom line is, how do we possibly vote on something when we don't understand it? And that's both sides of the aisle, by
In
the
terms
way.
of notice, though, let me say this. I think if you're going to garner testimony later from the Office of Independent Budget Review, clearly we discussed that with that office more than the 11th hour. This initiative was certainly aware in that, they were aware of this potential in that office. And I think in all candor, that office will be aware that this was an item considered in prior years.
I'll tell you this,
We were never
I don't
notified.
rely on that side of the aisle because I won't get communication in terms of detail. And that's the one, but that's, okay, well, that's the reality of life on here, sitting on stage. That's number one. I can only turn around to certain people and say, Danny or Chris, what do you know about this issue? Answer these 50 questions to me. And when they all shake their heads no, I just turned just now to Danny, had no clue as to what was transpiring. So, I don't know that it's up to the independent office to come back to either one of us and either side of the aisle and tell us. But I say to both sides of the aisle on this issue, if I don't understand, and I'm reasonably competent enough to understand concepts, and it's so new, I don't know how any one of these 19 legislators could vote for something when they don't understand it, because there's no way, unless they specifically sat down with the police department in the last 24 hours and one-on-one answered all their questions, I don't know how anybody could vote for this. Thank you.
to you. We had several budget hearings. The public safety hearing about two or 3 weeks ago. I asked very, very keen questions. Number one, it was important to, not only to me, but I think to this entire body, that public safety in this county cannot be compromised, primarily because times are changing. And you were saying to me, and those of us here, and those of us out there, that you will not compromise public safety. Well, 2 years ago, I had a battle with the commissioner at that time because it was felt that public safety was being compromised. And as a result, he's no longer with us. You came on board last year, I believe, and you began to undo some of the things that were done by the previous commissioner. Now, you say that we're really not compromising public safety. We're down to 2652 as far as police officers are concerned. We're down to 404 detectives. I brought up the safety town that you said was not fiction, it was truth. That at the end of the year, we would be closing and we could find other initiatives to serve the same purpose.
And we're working on that, and that will,
All right,
that will
now,
happen.
I am saying to you, this here is another safety factor. These people who work as crossing guards are outside of their homes, the guardians for the children who cross and for the adults who cross. To say we need to cut another $1 million. Oh, and by the way, you never mentioned at the public safety hearing that we were going to be reducing the hours of the crossing guards. Never mentioned it. So we were caught off guard yesterday when the phones were ringing off the hook about the fact that they will not be employed during the summer, or they will be limited employed during the summer. This all comes down to compromising public safety. Taxpayers pay their hard-earned dollars, and one of their priorities is public safety. And they can say to me, we cannot find the $1 million. We'll come up with amendments today to show you how we can do it. Because I have more to tell you.
I'll explain the initiative again, and I'll repeat that this is not a public safety initiative. Every school crossing that you referred to, the fine job work that the crossing guards provide will continue to be provided at every school crossing. We're not contemplating cutting any. We're not contemplating not covering events that occur in the summer as we traditionally have with crossings. All of that will continue. Public safety will not be compromised. In the area of support of the department, clerical support, we are going to use other mechanisms in this fiscal crisis to handle that work.
So we will
It's
work.
not public safety.
Okay, Commissioner, what about the
at all.
churches, the temples, and other religious
All
institutions?
of them. Nothing will change in that regard. I got to make that crystal clear.
Who's going to be doing it?
Who will do it? Police officers or the crossing guards?
Crossing guard.
Okay, hold on. You know, I believe at this point in time, since we have not been notified properly, that we had no idea this was going to happen, and we're the ones who bear the brunt of the phone calls coming into our offices, complaining about the cut that nobody had expected, all right? And knowing that it could have been avoided if we looked a little bit more into the budget as a whole. Now, I got another question for you. And this goes back to merging all of the police services, the BMU, the IT, the fleet service. I believe it was Inspector Crump last week who said that there will be background checks. Now, I was a school teacher in the city of New York. Before I could be hired, I had to go through a background check. And I was not put on the payroll until the results of that background check came into being. Is that the case here in the city, in Nassau County?
Yeah, at the public safety hearing, legislator Ciotti asked me, I think I responded in writing. that
Yes,
they
you
will
did.
get the same precise background check as the police mechanics currently get.
Now, my question though, do you get the result of that background check before they start or after they start?
Before they start. Before we offer them work on police vehicles.
Okay, now I'm going to ask another question that may be very, very, I guess, difficult to answer. And that is, have we hired anyone in the police service, the BMU, that did not muster up to the background check? Do we have any people employed in those services?
Within the police department?
Yes.
Not that I'm aware, it's part of the hiring, so.
Okay, I'm going to ask you to go back and take another look, okay? And see whether or not we have people who are employed in fleet services or BMU or any other of the police services who really and truly did not pass that background check, but did not have the results of that.
Send me their names, I'll